Hello, and welcome to the Future of Femalehood Podcast. We're here to work together to build a healthier and happier world for women through AI. I'm your host, Morgan Rose. I am a certified nurse midwife, women's health nurse practitioner, international board certified lactation consultant, and head of science at Emma.
And I'm your host, Karishma Patel. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Emma, and I run everything tied to experience, whether it's your experience with the brand to your experience with the product.
And in each episode, we'll discuss the latest advancements in AI for women, examine the implications of these new technologies, and share inspiring stories of the powerful individuals shaping the future of AI for femalehood. So our podcast format today, we have Dr. Trill, who is here from Free to Feed. So we're going to have a little conversation with her. We're going to talk about the latest in AI news, how Dr. Trill is using AI in her platform, and then how we all use AI in our day-to-day lives. So Dr. Trill, we're so excited to have you here. We've worked with her for years at Emma. She was one of our first experts that we brought on. Trill, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me. It is a privilege to get to speak with both of you and your listeners. So Free to Feed helps parents navigate food allergies, and we've been doing this for almost 5 years now, which still kind of blows my mind. And the ways that we do that is by offering research, products, and services specifically tailored to help those families who are navigating those early food allergy journeys. Oftentimes, this is through breastfeeding, formula feeding, and those first starting solids journeys. We have everything from consultations to our app to a multivitamin and other kind of products that are built around exactly what parents are looking for. And this is all stemming from my own background in a PhD in cellular molecular biology and having 2 little girls who both had severe food reactivity as infants.
Yeah, we were saying that your name and your profession and your personal experiences have aligned beautifully into this line of work. And it's such an important topic. So I think for so many new parents, especially with first-time parents, it's like you don't know what your baby's going to react to and how to manage it. So we're super thankful for you and for all the work that you do to support these families.
Can I just say real quick, the last time I don't do a lot of external meetings and meet with a lot of our experts personally. I don't get the privilege of doing that. My work's more back end. But the last time I did one of these was actually with Dr. Trill. And that was actually before I became a parent. And since then, I've doubled that. Now I have 2. And I think about the things specifically that we talked about during that Facebook Live all the time. I never knew the word elimination diet before then. And luckily my kids have been pretty lucky with not having many allergies, but I meet a lot of moms in my same peer, level with just motherhood. And I think about all the time about this elimination diet. How do you identify the source of the allergy, the cow's milk protein, what the mom has to do? And I remember it so well. And I find it so interesting in that so many people don't actually know about everything that goes into what you do until you're in that bucket. And it's so fascinating to me that someone like you exists and you're channeling your knowledge to help moms and their babies.
Mm-hmm. Wait, Trill, can you tell us a little bit about the testing, the strip that you use to test for allergies and how that works? Because there's the elimination diet, which is a huge commitment for new parents to take on, because it means you're eliminating a lot of the food groups they would normally eat and just sticking to one group to test it. And then you have a testing kit. Tell us about the difference, when you would recommend one over the other.
That's a great question. So right now, when parents are faced with needing to do an elimination diet. And so for those who are listening and aren't familiar, an elimination diet is essentially if you are lactating and your baby starts presenting with symptoms, sometimes we can see an issue where the dietary proteins that we're intaking can elicit allergic responses in our babies. And these allergic responses can vary widely from colic, reflux, rashes, eczema, bloody stool, diarrhea. There's a whole gamut of particular symptoms that are caused in these infants. And typically, up to this time point, we've had to do what's called a blind elimination, where you're just eliminating something and then hoping baby gets better, because we don't actually know exactly after I consume something. We have a general idea via the research about what time it should arrive in the breast, and we know about what time it should be cleared in the breast. If I'm regularly removing breast milk, usually we see it removed, peaking within a few hours in concentration and then steadily improving from there, usually gone within 8 hours. We give a 24-hour window for any outliers, but that exact science isn't known. And for you, every day, every time you eat something, it's going to change. So your hydration, your metabolism, when baby fed, all of these different things, even your stress can impact that timeline for transfer and clearance. So then we're just doing this blind elimination. We're taking these things out and then we're bringing things back. We're trying to navigate that largely blindly. The other thing that's really hard in that is that not everything you put in your mouth will end up in your breast. So if you eat peanuts on Tuesday, you may not see an allergic response, and then you eat them again on Thursday and you do. And you don't know, is that because then like it's not peanuts, it was actually the jelly that I had with the peanut butter? Or is it that the peanuts didn't transfer each time? And so what I have been working on over 5 years now is the technology to put that data and knowledge into the hands of parents. And what that has evolved into is a test kit. So a test kit that is very similar to an at-home pregnancy test or an at-home COVID test, where it's called a lateral flow, and you need a very small amount of breast milk, and it shows a line if you are over a certain threshold of the specific portions of the proteins that transfer to the breast after we consume them. And so what this does then is, in a real-time at-home setting, you can know exactly when something is transferred to your breast and exactly when it's clear. That way we can use that data alongside your symptomology to marry that information together and give you a correlation summary. This is what's likely eliciting a response for your particular baby. That way we're not doing blind elimination diets anymore. We know what our baby is reactive to because we know what's in the breast. And then from there, we have the ability to say, okay, I know that my baby is reactive to cow's milk and soy, as an example. And I'm going to go live my life now. I'm going to have cow's milk and soy largely eliminated from my diet. But if I go to a coffee shop and the barista gives me the wrong latte, which happens just way more often in our community than I'd like to even think about, you know when it has reached your breast, if ever, and when you can feed again without eliciting an allergic response in your infant. It gives the power back to parents by giving them the data. Our test kit is not yet available commercially, but we are working very hard towards launch, and we will have, fingers crossed, we will have the first test kit in hands this year.
That is so exciting, and it's going to save so many parents the time and pain of an elimination diet. Wait, so, but do you pair like a guided elimination diet with your test kit? Is that like, do you see them working together in any way, or with the test kit, there's like no need to eliminate unless you test positive for something that you see as an irritant to your baby?
Yeah, so we see this being a guided elimination where we specifically only eliminate things that are showing in correlation to symptomology. So essentially, let's say instead of parents being told, remove all the top allergens from your diet, which I have done for a year plus of my life, go on a really strict extreme elimination diet for a whole year. Instead of doing that, we say, okay, this is your correlation summary. These are the things or thing that you can eliminate from your diet that occurs then, and then you're only testing for that thing that elicits a response when you need to.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. And like bringing it kind of back to like what, what brought us together here was just like Emma and AI and just the concept of AI in our lives now. I'm like really curious to know what your take is on incorporating AI technology into your type of platform and method to, enhance the effectiveness of a guided elimination diet and meal plan for moms?
Yeah, so I am incredibly excited about these huge leaps that are being made in artificial intelligence, in machine learning, and everything in between. So what we see at Free to Feed is a few pieces. On one side, specifically that correlation summary, being able to pull all of the data and build the AI platform so that the parent can put in symptomology and we can make that correlative summary more educated, right? So we can be able to give them that data and that information quickly. Once they then choose, so a parent will choose, these are the things based on this summary or report, which we can use AI to generate that report then. Based on this summary and report, these are the things I'm going to eliminate from my diet. Let's say I get my summary report and based on that information, I decide I'm going to remove eggs and meat from my diet, just as an example. Then we would be able to utilize the AI in order to then give them a full meal plan, right? That's nutritionally complete, specific to their body weight, their needs, that the fact that they're nursing and exactly what vitamins that they need, in addition to their own dietary restrictions. Maybe they are kosher, maybe they're vegan. And then from there, take that meal plan, and once approved and the person says, oh yeah, that's definitely something that fits all of these needs, then plug that directly into, here's your shopping list, here are your recipes, and on from there, right? And we can take them through the entirety of that early feeding journey, utilizing AI as the backdrop for giving them all of that information. In addition to the other like really big focus that Free to Feed has right now is being able to utilize AI to be able to correlate summary or correlate symptomology. And so what I mean by that is I have the most obnoxious, world's largest collection of baby poop pictures from just thousands of parents.
You could sell that book.
Yeah, right?
And researchers and parents alike. You have a broad audience with that book.
So much. So if anybody's listening and they're curious, like, what is she talking about? freetofeed.com/diaper. That's our most popular website URL. And it is galleries of baby poop. And this is just a small smattering of the, pun intended, of the stool photos that we have. And one of the number one questions that parents has is this a reaction? Mm-hmm. Is this good or bad? And so we are collecting the pictures of rashes on infants and collecting the stool images, and we are labeling them in order to allow then for a parent to be able to take a picture of their own stool in their own home and have the AI be able to give them information about the probability that this is in fact a bad stool that causes a reaction or not.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. When people say that they're scared of AI, I'm like, how? I know we have to be careful with what we do with it, and there needs to be regulations and oversight. But what you just described is the coolest thing, one of the coolest use cases for this.
My mind is blown. It's officially blown.
And you said it's the most popular URL, like the diaper one. And I'm like, when I worked in a hospital setting, that was so true for parents when they left as a lactation consultant, as a midwife. The calls I would get trying to describe baby's poop over the phone, the rash that they saw, I would send them to like Stanford's website to look at examples. But I'm like, it's a really common and difficult question. I think if you're not a parent or not in that stage, you forget or just don't know that this is a really strong indicator of your baby's gastrointestinal health, their allergies, your milk supply. Like, it has the data to so many important aspects of your baby's health.
And I mean, I have some recency bias. I'm currently a lactating mom, and just you mentioning that URL, I'm immediately going to go do that after this. My baby does have reflux, and he's on famotidine for it, and we handle it and it's working well for him. But his poop is unlike my first one, who also had poop, and I'm just so curious why it's so different. And so I would be one of your use cases. It didn't even occur to me, honestly, that reflux A is a symptom of allergies in a baby, of something I could be eating. And I'm just kind of kicking myself thinking, could I have, spared him having to have this medicine if I knew that? But he's fine. I'm just now so curious to go dive into this even further. That's going to be my day now.
And I want to mention too that like the reason why this is the most, popular, if you will, topic for us on our site and amongst parents. I get DMs like almost on the hourly basis of people just sending me their child's poop. My life is weird. Things I did not know I would do as a PhD in science was look at other, strangers' baby poops. But it would be strange if you did know, right? Unless like you've been a nanny or you had little kids in your life, like it would be weird. I would be more worried about you if you were like, I know exactly what all of the normal poop looks like for a baby. Because it does. It's not the same as an adult. And it is very, very different. And so, yeah, like that would be weird if you did know that. And so then we end up in this space of like, oh, this wasn't in like the pregnancy classes that I took. They talked about meconium, like the very first poop that comes out, and they warn you about that. It's going to be black and tarry. And then that's it. Like you're just off on your own and you're inspecting this, diaper in the better sunlight in your day room, hoping your neighbors don't see you. And, there's no additional guidance. And that's where we think that AI is going to be incredibly powerful.
So I have a really technical question, and we can dive into this a little bit. If you don't want to get into that here, totally understand. But how are you building and training the AI model to recognize the symptomology with the pictures? Like, what's your process like as a company to develop that? And then like also are you getting like false negatives and false positives? Are you testing it? Can you answer those questions now? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one thing is needing to have a lot of data in order to train. So a lot of diaper pictures. Like when I said, like I have the world's largest collection, I truly mean that. And then the next step of that is having it be very accurately labeled. And so what I mean by that is if it is a reaction, exactly why and exactly where we see that there's a reaction. If it is not a reaction, why? And then the next piece of that being obviously lots of testing, right, to check to see if there are false positives, false negatives, in addition to like being able to flag if it's something that is borderline, right? So as the machine learning is occurring, as we're utilizing the platform, being able to see, okay, this is how many we got flagged, going in and labeling them, so then it's just continuing to teach itself, right? So you're able to close that gap more and more. I think that the other thing is learning from others' mistakes. So one of the things that is kind of recent in the news is the conversation around whether or not the research around AI being able to identify cancers, for example, right? Being able to identify tumors and whether or not a tumor was benign or malignant. And what they found is that the AI was very inaccurate, and it was partially because of the images they were trained on. The tumors which were cancerous usually had a label next to it because that's like it had something different about it because it was cancer. And so it would have like a ruler, for example, next to it. Yeah. And so then it trained the AI, oh, when you see a ruler, that's what makes it cancerous, not what the size, shape, structure of the actual tumor was. So essentially us taking the information and learning from others, our own wins and losses in the science community and saying, okay, what can we do to alleviate that, anomaly, for example? The good news is there's no, rulers typically in the world of diapers. But for us, that means like, being able to train the AI to understand the difference between a cloth diaper and a disposable diaper, because those are two very different things, and different colors of diapers and different patterns that are on the other side of the diaper. So learning from others' mistakes has been very helpful for us too.
And are you also showing pictures of rashes? Because that can also present differently based on skin tone. And so I'm assuming there's a whole different biasing model that you have to train the AI on to know a rash in a person with white skin versus darker skin tone is going to present differently.
Yes, exactly. And it's also difficult because there are so many additional things that can cause these types of rashes in infants. You have heat rashes and just a whole slew of different things. And so with the skin AI, I think it's going to take longer for that rollout because one, there is inherent biases in the data and not having enough pictures of people of color with these types of rashes. And so being very, very specific about like driving that and making sure that the data that we have enough data for people of color. And in addition to that, understanding there's everything from the lighting to the angle to there's a lot there and more differences than what we see in stool. So the rash piece will be something that's going to take longer, but just as valuable.
Yeah. And are you using, I mean, like Google announced the Med Palm 2, which like passed the really tough medical exam at what, like an 85.4%. Are you using any of these like APIs that have some of this medical knowledge and training in your free to feed AI program? And if so, which ones and how are you using that?
We are, pardon me, we are utilizing some of these platforms that are coming out. And quite honestly, we're in the midst of still driving. I think there will continue to be more available. So the end result of like what the final API or APIs that we end up going with will probably change over the next like even weeks, right? Like it's just a constant thing. Google is probably the mainstay for us for a lot of reasons, but I think it'll change. And I think like that's going to be an interesting thing for us is what ends up being like the end all be all for us and what's the best for our use case. There isn't like the best at this point for the stool issue, which is the beauty and the pain of what we're doing is the beauty being that we're the first in this space, the pain being that we're the first in this space.
Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing about this is, right, there's all of these big technology platforms that are building these APIs that we can all utilize. And then we're training it within the context of our area of expertise. And so like what you were just saying, like you're the first to use some of these APIs that give you the foundation to do something very specific that's not being done by these big technology companies. And you're creating with that something very unique, something very useful, something that you have to test and refine. And from that could even become its own API at some point for another company to utilize in their own unique contextual ways. And I'm like, this is where I get so excited with what we're building because it is sort of this like scaffolding effect of like, you know, each person has their unique approach and take, and you can layer the technology on top of each other to create something that hopefully, I think we all have a very ethical mindset around this, enhances health, well-being, and access to things that we need to feel well in life.
Yeah, that's actually, it brings me to like my next question, honestly, where as the head of experience with our product, you mentioned that, a lot of what we're doing hasn't been done before. And that means that a lot of people out there haven't experienced anything like this before. And a lot of people, there's like a huge spectrum out there right now of people's experiences with AI. They're the people that use GPT every day in their daily life. And then there are people who honestly don't even know what it is or never heard of it. And what I've picked up on is that the people who are more unfamiliar definitely lead a little bit with fear. It's just a very common and very understandable, natural instinct to be fearful because what is out there are movies like Ex Machina where you're just like, oh my God, that's going to completely take over our lives. My question, I guess, to you is, for your specific target demo, parents, new moms, what are you finding to be the most interesting way that you've been able to explain to AI to this demo that makes them feel better versus makes them feel scared?
Yeah, I think a few things that have been helpful would be one, as it relates to like image identification and categorization. The main piece there is explaining to them that the reason why I am capable of looking at a diaper and within a couple of questions be able to tell you with very, very good certainty whether or not a diaper is normal or not for that baby is because I have seen thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures, and I have worked with thousands of families. And so the struggle then is taking all of that I have done in years and years of work and translating that to another person, right? And then more people and more people, and making that actually scalable because there's only one of me, and I can only look at so many pictures in a day. But if I could translate that knowledge that I've gleaned over years to another model, like an AI model, then I can help everybody all at once. And so me explaining it like that, saying I'm literally taking what I know and all of the imaging that I've seen over the years and giving it to the AI model to do exactly what I do. And in that way, I think that puts it a little bit into perspective for individuals. Now, I think the other piece too is, there's a lot of worry, kind of as you mentioned, right, and trust around the AI because it's new to the consumer, right? It's not necessarily like new in general, but it's new to the consumer, and I think that's normal. I think that the other thing that I like to talk about is the other like big disruptors in technology. This is the same conversation that we had when the internet began, right? And I'm sure, like, I'm fairly certain that you two are probably in the same generation of like, what the sound of like dial-up is, and had that computer where like you click a link and then like go, walk around the block twice and then come back and it would be loaded type of situation, right? These are the same conversations that were being had then about the internet. And are there issues? Absolutely. There are issues, and there is regulation around it, and there's good and bad actors in this space. And the same will be true in the AI space as well.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts around, like, did you pay attention or watch the hearings? Okay. Do you have thoughts on regulations and the oversight recommendations that Sam Altman talked about?
Yeah, I did watch the hearings and with Sam Altman, and I think the most interesting pieces for me was one. I really appreciated that, like, he really laid it out, right? He was like X, Y, and Z. These are like the really big problems that we see coming down the pipelines. The good of all of that is like the openness. The downside being we only know what we know, right? And we can know what we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know type of situation. So that's always interesting to me of like, what else, right? And I think that in time we will see that come to light. The other thing that the hearings really shed a light on for me too is the government's need to bring in experts for this space, because these are the same individuals that are asking questions, quite frankly, like, does TikTok access my Wi-Fi? Like, these individuals are not subject matter experts as it relates to technology in general, let alone technology that is on the cutting edge, AI. So I think it painted a very good picture, especially when Sam was asked if he would be interested in being that oversight person. And Sam was like, I really like my job. Basically, like, really kindly saying, like, no, thanks. And so who, right? Like, who is that group of humans who is in charge of that oversight and building that and needing to do it now rather than later?
And with a diverse group of people, because it's really going to shape what we bake into AI and then who it's for and how it's accessed. And I think whoever we select for that is going to be a really important indicator of our trajectory with it too.
Totally.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to segue us into like some more some more levity with the topic of AI. Whenever my mind starts to go down the hole of just like regulation and weaponizing, I'm like, okay, back to the fun stuff. Is where we can kind of end on this like more positive note. We don't always get experts that are as familiar with AI as you are. So I kind of wanted to have some fun with this and just kind of, I always like to pick people's brains on how do you use AI yourself in your day-to-day life? Like even outside of Free to Feed, like what are the things that you do to just make your life super easy? Like the things that have blown your mind recently with using AI. Like I love to pick up on what other people are doing so I can maybe incorporate some of that into my life. So how are you using it just in your life?
Yeah, so I would say so Free to Feed is the biggest area that I use it. So I'll give a couple of examples of using it on the Free to Feed side, and then I'll give a couple examples on the personal side. So on the Free to Feed side, I am using Open Playground more. So Open Playground allows you to choose lots of different models. And I mostly use the GPT-4 model because I want the internet kind of connectivity, the up-to-date. So I will utilize that, especially in Free to Feed most recently, to help me with my grant writing. It is so helpful where and not necessarily writing the grant per se, but I can go into GPT-4 and say, copy a sentence that I've written and say, give me the 3 best scientific publications for this statement.
Yeah.
And it will give them to me. And then I can pick which one or which ones I want to use as what I'm referencing for, for the actual grant itself. Is when I'm structuring like the budget through and saying like, okay, this is what I have for budget. Where do you see me being able to add supplies for a molecular biology lab? And it gives me that. So it's a lot of having almost like that virtual assistant person to like work through those problems with, and it makes it so much faster. Something that would have taken me like a week to do, I can get done in a day, which is just mind-blowing and wonderful. I love to use GPT in addition to on the grant writing side. We also use it on the content side of things for literally saying like, give me 10 potential titles for this blog piece. Give me, what are the 3 main topics that you would use for this blog piece, for example, or rewrite this caption in a way that's more like funny and gives more levity to it. Things like that, just so incredibly helpful. On the personal side, I love gardening. Like that's my thing, my hobby, if you will. And so I have used AI to help me like build my garden, right? I'm very much a like companion planting person. So if you're growing squash, like what kind of flowers can you grow next to squash that helps deter any of the pests? Or what kind of herbs can I grow next to squash to deter pests, because I'm an organic farmer or gardener. And so it can build that for me. So myself and like this AI platform, the infamous we, have built like entire charts and platforms and like maps of what I can do in my garden. Which plants am I putting inside the greenhouse? Which ones are going out? How do I map it all out? And how do I succession plant? It's just so incredibly helpful. And it's something that I can have on my phone too. So I can literally be like out in the garden and just type in like, what are my best companion plants in this tomato bed that has basil and a pepper in it already? And there it is right there. And it's so very helpful. So I would say those are the main areas. There's always like random things that pop up. They're like, oh, this is something I should pop into an AI and see what's generated. And I'm so excited for the additional platforms that are coming out and seeing them improve. And I think the competition is very good, right? The competition is very good because it's going to allow for this to continue to be more and more accessible to more and more people. And truly, my entire team is utilizing it now. And it's been wonderful.
It's the best time save. It's like opened up a whole new window of opportunity to work on things in a deeper way, in a faster way. more effective way. We have like a little water cooler channel in Slack, and we're like, what's your favorite way of using GPT right now? And it's just so fun to see how each individual has like used it in a way that both professionally and individually, just outside of work, in a way that's different from how I would use it. And I'm like, oh, that's such a cool idea. Gardening. Never would have, don't know why I wouldn't have thought of it. I love gardening. And I'm like, I never thought to take my gardening questions to GPT. But that's why I love having these conversations, because you get like inspired with like, the limits are endless.
I always use GPT to help me come up with like catchy titles to things, like puns and stuff like that, just like for fun things. We were with a group of friends and we were experimenting with just like a cocktail, and we only had grapefruit and basil with us. So I just asked them like, hey, can you give me, and gin. So I was like, can you give me like a good recipe and to turn this into a cocktail? And they did. And we were watching Harry Potter that night. So I was like, can you come up with a name for this cocktail that's Harry Potter themed? And all of a sudden it said, what about the Ginny Weasley? And everyone lost their marbles because they were like, this is perfect. It's Ginny Weasley. So it's just little moments like that too that I just like, I always like to share as just the fun thing AI did for me this week.
That's amazing. I love that. That is fabulous. And yes, exactly as you mentioned, there's so many things. And I think that's going to grow exponentially, right? Of those moments of like, oh, I could use this here. And being able to continue to have amazing, hilarious moments like that to, being a more prolific gardener.
Yes. Or maybe our congressional members could have used it to ask better questions.
Ooh. Yes.
That's fired.
Oh, yes. Please that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Dr. Trill. We are thrilled to have you. Thank you, Kay, for jumping in and co-hosting with me today.
Love it.
Just so everyone knows, all of our listeners, every week on Emma, through the end of May, we are doing a giveaway. So if you hop on the app, download it. It's Emma in the App Store. You join a circle, participate, and it enters you for a chance to win our giveaway. So we'll pick a winner at the end of the month. We would love to see you on there. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation and feel inspired to join the movement to build a healthier and happier world for women through AI. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. That's a tongue twister. So you never miss an episode, and download the app in the App Store. Thank you, everyone.